We've always kind of, pushed the technological edge.
When we created the Toy That Saved Christmas, there were some dramatic changes in production values.
Toy was a pretty big step for us.
Toy That Saved Christmas was significantly more ambitious than the films we had done before it.
Back then we had, there was only like 8 of us.
I was the 9th employee.
And there were still only 10 of us, the same number that we had just done. I think Dave and the Giant Pickle was before that, right?
Right.
Which is
Yep,
a much
just
simpler,
before that, yep.
much simpler show. So we kind of killed ourselves to get it done on time.
I remember heat and no sleep.
I walked into the executive offices of a screw machine factory, which were the offices that were where Big Idea was, and smelled the cutting oil that was in the air.
The guy who had built the factory had actually spent way too much on his front offices for scale to the factory itself, so he went out of business. He went bankrupt.
I think it was the shag carpeting and the...
Yes, I mean, he built himself his own, big wood-paneled office, very 60s, with lime green linoleum tile all over the place. And then his office had shag carpeting, real wood paneling, his own bathroom, personal bathroom. And so he went out of business because he spent too much.
Don't forget about the drapes.
On his office. Oh,
the drapes.
Drapes to die for. It was all very kind of, Austin Powers.
And we actually packed FedEx packages, in the office, sent them to people. People would open them up and say, "That smells like your office." It's like,
so we were shipping this.
Ship the smell.
Yes, shipping the smell across the country. Jim and Jerry,
Ich bin ein Gord.
the landlords, wanted to change the air conditioning unit on the roof of the aforementioned screw manufacturing plant. And this is in September, summer was ending, so they walk in the door in September, go to the woman who was working our front desk at that time and say, "Would now be a good time to shut down the air handling for the year?" And she looked around.
And it was a cool day on
and
that
it was a
particular
cool day.
Yeah.
And said, "I think so." And then they turned around and walked out. We never heard of this conversation. It was never relayed to us. 2 days later, the air conditioning turns off. Then we get a heat wave. So we've got a heat wave in September heading into October. We've got 10 people working on computers trying to finish a show, and it's 85, 88 degrees, in the office.
But that's where
sweating.
green linoleum comes in handy because it
Yes.
stays quite cool, so you
linoleum.
can actually cool off on the linoleum if you lay down flat.
Sooner or later, we developed a infestation of mice.
We had fly paper set up. I don't know if that was to catch mice or not.
It dawned on me that this company was definitely unusual when we were in the last week or two of the show.
And of course, it's a Christmas show, so you can't ship it late. There's no shippy lady on a Christmas show, because no one, for Groundhog's Day, people do not buy Christmas videos. So we had to get it done on time. We ended up, working around the clock.
The reason there was this night shift was because the computers, we only had 3 or 4 computers that we could actually work on.
They just wouldn't leave the office. They just had to get the show finished.
I have a very distinct memory of stepping over a sleeping animator in a hallway to get to the edit room, so we could try to finish the show. So there were just people lying on, pieces of foam rubber on the floor,
Right.
trying to sleep while we were getting it done.
We called it the noni foam, remember?
That's right.
My mom's name is Noni, or Noni for short, and she had all these old foam things that she, used to use under her mattress or whatever, and I, inherited them somehow, and brought them to work, and,
Yes.
everybody laid on the Noni foam.
I was still working full-time at a church as a director of music, so I would work my full day at my other job, come home, and at that point my studio was in a spare room in our house. It didn't even have a door. It was just kind of off of our dining room. So I had it half filled with music equipment. So 10 o'clock at night, or whenever Phil was done with his work at the office, he would come over. So we had a lot of very late nights into the morning trying to get the score done. And then he'd have to get a few hours sleep and go back and go to his regular office.
At this one point, there was an announcement made, and I've been there for 28 hours now, and this announcement comes over our phone intercom. The final shot will be rendered in an hour. And I look at my clock and it's like midnight and I'm thinking an hour, gee, that's going to be 1 a.m. So I get on the train and the stop before downtown goes right by our offices. And so I'm looking at the window, I look outside and I notice as we go by the offices, every one of the employees' cars are still there. Look at my watch, it's 8:45.
It was a harrowing time. I remember just people laid out on the floor the very last day, including Phil. We're all just like crashing.
The tape left, got down to Dallas, handed the tape to the duplicator. It went off and they started making copies of The Toy That Saved Christmas. Meanwhile, the rest of us just kind of collapsed. Everybody went home. But that night, about midnight, Phil Vischer, Bob the Tomato, wakes up with these terrible chest pains. He thinks he's having a heart attack. Lisa Vischer, his wife, Junior Asparagus, takes him to the emergency hospital. It takes him about 3 hours to figure out, well, no, it's not a heart attack, but actually a bacteria, because he's so depleted, his body is attacking his heart. And they send him home and put him in bed. He has to stay in bed for about a month. And then, now that he's rested up, we're thrilled he's alive. We know that's just terrific. But as soon as you get well, could you write the next script?
The Toy That Saved Christmas was a watershed film for us because we had never attempted anything limbid before. You know, we just had vegetables.
In The Toy That Saved Christmas, the penguins, which I didn't appreciate at the time as a real dramatic production improvement, but they had arms and legs. I mean, they had wings and legs, featherless wings, albeit.
So the animators really started getting into, okay, give us some arms and legs. You know, anything with arms and legs, which led to, okay, you want it? Here it comes. It's Buzzsaw Louie, a jointed toy, and then ultimately, you know, the penguins.
Tom Danon at one point had the scene where Louie first steps out of the warehouse and slips and tumbles down the stairs into the snowball. And he was just laboring over this, you know, how does this have to look and everything? And he finally, he saw a Jackie Chan movie, and he saw one point where Jackie's just like flying through the air, but his arms are windmilling and his legs are kicking, and it was just this, the perfect action fall. So that's where Tom got this inspiration to give Louie the Jackie Chan fall. So that's what it became from then on. This is Jackie Chan.
I didn't realize how difficult that was because of our software that we were using. I mean, actually animating appendages really slows down the process. It's why we use vegetables.
And it was actually on this show, The Toy That Saved Christmas, that one of our vegetables, for the first time, acted with his shoulders.
That's right.
And
That's
vegetables don't have shoulders, but Mr. Nezer shrugs. You know, as Ron Smith was the animator.
It's just the scene where the townspeople confront Nezer, and he's kind of, you know, oh, I don't know, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're doing. And I just put this little chuckle thing in there, and because he was more costumed than most of the other characters. He had his little shirt and tie and his pants. But just because I had that to kind of make visible the edges of his relatively spherical shape going up and down, it was this groundbreaking moment of vegetable thespianism.
And I just remember watching that. It's like, what? Play that again. How did you make him shrug? He doesn't have shoulders.
Quite some acclaim I gained with that one.
So it was on this show that, you know, the animators really started pushing the animation to a level beyond what I had conceived.
When Nezer has them all tied up on the sled at the end before he sends them to their doom, the ability of the computer to animate, like do secondary animation, if you move this character, having the rope move with him was impossible. We couldn't do that. So if you watch the show and you're like, that rope's not really around them that tight, they can get out of there. Just please remember that we were having to finagle that rope after moving every character. It's good thing they're tied down and they can't move too much, but even then it was still pretty big chore.
Big Idea Productions presents the VeggieTales Christmas Spectacular!
We were excited that we were finally going to get one of our shows on TV. So we did a deal with PAX that had just started. It's like, well, this will be fun. Let's see if we can, a new network, see if we can get a new audience to come to a new network to watch Veggies on Christmas.
Larry,
Yeah, Bob?
this is network television.
I know.
Do you know how hard it was to get a network to turn over an hour of airtime to a bunch of vegetables?
Well, I love Christmas music, so when we had a chance to do a Christmas show, I thought that was going to be a lot of fun, which it was. But we didn't use a lot of traditional Christmas music, so I had a lot of fun trying to sneak it in where I could. For example, on the silly song, "Oh Santa, da 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 da," at the end there, through the whole verse, you hear jingle bells underneath there. At the very end of that song, you hear just a line of Joy to the World. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
With a lot of the silly songs, it's kind of a conglomeration of a few different experiences for me.
Oh, Santa, I can't wait for you to come. I just can't wait for you to come, and I've got cookies.
I think Oh Santa, obviously I wanted it to, have a Christmas theme. I had just seen, my wife and I went and saw the play The Kiss of the Spider Woman with Cheetah Rivera. And so we had just seen that, and there was a song in that kind of caught my attention. It wasn't really the melody of the song, it was more of the style of the song. There were two singers kind of in a duet, and then their lines would overlap, and they wouldn't be the same lines. So, they'd be, kind of singing over each other like that in a really kind of a cool fashion. So I thought, oh, that'd be really neat to do something like that.
We could do that, too.
We could do that.
We
yeah.
could sing at the same time, too.
Yes, we thought that, and then so I came up with this concept of Larry, having these cookies ready for Santa, and then different people would come and take his cookies besides Santa.
In the score, it's fun to sneak in some Christmas songs here and there also, but some of them aren't as familiar. For example, there's this one. See if you know this one. Which is, Willie, take your little drum, da-da-dum-bum-bum. But I like to sneak that in where there's some real action sequences. Bum, 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 bum. So I change up the rhythm and kind of hide it in there.
The messages are almost as much for parents as they are for kids. Like, hey, let's just look at how stupid this is. That we're all running around, gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it, and it's stuff that no one needs at all. So that was the genesis of Buzzsaw Louie. The little, like, what if an action figure, like a Cabbage Patch Kid, stood up and said, hey, this is ridiculous, this isn't what Christmas is about. You don't need me. I'm just a little stuffed sock, and that's the storyline.
I think Big Idea Productions is the only company that makes children's programming that handles faith issues in such a relevant, real way, with great humor and enjoyment. So it's a joy to work with. But originally it was like everybody just kind of had their fingers crossed. They prayed in the morning, Lord, we sure hope we don't lose anything today, because we don't have time to back it up, nor do we have the funds to pay for backup.
And they all lived happily ever after. The end.
A couple of years ago, probably 3 years ago now, we were kicking around ideas for new shows. And we made The Toy That Saved Christmas, which was our Christmas special way, way back in 1996. So it was like show 6. Yes, when we watch it now, we kind of go, ugh! Yeah. There were only, there were literally only 10 of us in the whole company when we made that first Christmas special. So we decided it's time to do a new Christmas special. I tend to think a story is much more interesting and much less cliched if it's based on as much reality as possible. So before I started writing, we set it in time. Okay, it's 1880s. We set it geographically. It's London. And then I started researching, okay, what was going on in the 1880s in London? What was the state of theater? What other contemporary kind of archetypal characters were there in England, in that day? What could we use as a springboard for building a new Christmas story? And the first thing that popped into my mind was Gilbert and Sullivan. Then we just got down to building out the story. Like, okay, Bob and Larry are Gilbert and Sullivan. Then what? We wanted to tell the story of Christmas, but in an interesting context, an unexpected context. Up till this point, VeggieTales has been very dialogue heavy. You know, you could almost air our shows as radio shows and still follow them pretty well, because there's just not a whole lot of pure action. Partly because of the limitations of the characters, not having arms and legs and not being able to wrestle or, you know, drive cars or things like that. And then partly just because it's more expensive in CGI in particular to do action versus dialogue. But I wanted to change that on this one and really hit a story, you know, that pushed all the right buttons, that had funny dialogue, but also had, you know, really, really hilarious action and just some really elaborate, involved stuff and set pieces. And I think, you know, we pulled it off really well.
Phil was the writer of the story, and me being the producer, you know, I have to watch for the budget and the schedule and those type of things.
Everyone okay back there? Ah! Good.
And I'm reading through, and the characters are riding this rocket car through London, and I'm getting down to the bottom of the page, and I see a sign. I'm reading that they see a sign, the Crystal Palace, the world's largest glass structure, and it's sounding like they turn toward it like they're gonna drive through this glass structure. I'm reading this and I'm going, no, we can't do this. You know? And I turn the page and they go, and Larry goes, oh, never mind. And they turn back and they go the other way. And I'm still, to this day, convinced that Phil did that just as a joke to me. I can't prove it, but I still think he did. On the budget that we were going to have to come out on this show, that just would have been impossible. And so the owner of the company to write something into the script that would have been almost impossible to do would have been, you know, that's why I was like, no! But it turned out really well, and it's a funny gag, and it really worked.
It's that easy. Bob and Larry come to work, and they're usually a little bit late, which gives me time to get my coffee, and then they arrive on the set, and then yell action, they come out and do their stuff, and take, cut, print it.
Right.
I'm just always amazed by Phil and Mike, their writing. You never know what to expect. And when I first heard we were doing a Christmas special, I thought, oh, traditional Christmas special. Nah.
My part in putting the show together wasn't too complicated this time around. I was in the capable hands of Phil Vischer and Tim Hodge, Tim directing and Phil writing the script. I just got to stand in the booth and scream a lot as Larry.
There's no more stairs! What do we do? What do we do?
And, you know, sing, "We are the fairy peas of Christmas," you know, like Jean-Claude. So I had a great time doing vocals in for the story.
Larry's Millward is trying to come up with a rhyme for possum.
Schlossum, crossum, spatassum.
And he's going through every combination of letter, like going down the typewriter, trying to find the first letter in each word that rhymes with possum. It was fun coming up with a few of those. Phil wrote most of that, but he wrote a number of words that rhyme with possum, but we needed more filler because the scene went on longer, so it was my turn to come up with a few of those that tra-la-la-la-la-some. That was a good one. Everybody laughs.
I did some research, actually. I had a book on Gilbert and Sullivan and went through it and wrote down all of the names of their friends and contemporaries that are mentioned in the book. And so all the names in the show, you know, Bob's name is
Monsieur Appletart.
Appy Thart.
Larry's name is
Millward Phillips.
Pa Grape is Seymour Schwenk.
Huh?
And Seymour Schwenk, those are actually Gilbert and Sullivan's two middle names put together. Gilbert Sullivan and Arthur Schwenk. Or is it the other way around? Gilbert Schwenk and Arthur Sullivan. I don't remember.
The crew that handled the major portions of Star of Christmas were a lot of the animators that worked on the Penguins, the 3-2-1 Penguin show. And if you look around the sets, there are little homages to that. On the mantelpiece in Bob's office, you see little Penguins figurines. If you have to look really closely, or on the pole where the posters are, you can see the corner of one of the Penguins posters. You may not recognize it. It was the red and yellow poster on there, but it was a little tip of the hat to all the guys that worked on Penguins, came over and worked on Veggies for the first time. There are some hidden little numbers occasionally in our show. When Bob and Larry get arrested and go to jail, they're name placards where the numbers at the bottom are not random numbers. Those are actually the birth dates of Phil Vischer and Mike Naraki, the voices of Bob and Larry. I look over Junior's shoulder when he's performing the narration for the Christmas show, the placard behind him that has like hymn numbers. Those are actually references to dates of one of our animators, significant points in his life where he met his now wife and their wedding anniversary. So he'll never forget that anniversary as long as he watches our show.
I love the idea of creating an absolutely bizarre parody musical.
Your toilet exploded, you're flushing in vain.
And finally settled on The Princess, and the Plumber, a musical spectacular. And so then I wrote it, did it all. I was watching a special on A&E, and it was a special on Walt Disney, a 2-hour special on the life of Walt Disney, and they were talking about some of the early cartoons, and they actually showed the marquee of a theater that one of the first Mickey Mouse cartoons was playing, and they panned down, and the name of the movie that was playing with it was The Princess and the Plumber. And I went, what was that? It's on screen for about 3 frames. Like, what on earth? So I have no idea. I was afraid to even bring it up, because I don't know who's going to be suing me from the past. So we really felt that we had the opportunity with the Christmas film to tell the story of, okay, this is why Christians celebrate Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Pincher.
For me, that's the moment of the film, because it shows what we have learned, just kind of in theory, here's what it looks like in practice. And Bob really got it. There is a story that can teach the world to love. You can't teach a man to love with spectacle, with electric lights, with flash. The only way to teach him, really to teach a man to love, is the story of what God did for us.
Hi everyone, Chris Wall here. You have found one of the Easter eggs. Congratulations. This is an extended clip of Bob on Main Street as he's wrapping up the story of St. Nicholas, and it actually goes into much more of the historical data that Phil Vischer actually brought to the table, did a lot of good research on for us, and has the history of St. Nicholas as it relates to Santa Claus. And it's great stuff, but at this point in the story, we were really looking to kind of wrap things up, and this scene just got a little long, and so we cut it. Well, here it is in its full length, and we hope you enjoy it.
And that, kids, is the story of St. Nicholas.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Not many people do.
So, why do we call him Santa Claus if he's really St. Nicholas?
That's an interesting story, Larry. The Dutch brought stories of St. Nicholas and the celebration of St. Nicholas Day to America in the 1600s, who, in Dutch, was called Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas?
Yes, Sinterklaas. Washington Irving wrote it down in a story, but he changed it to Santa Claus.
Oh, Santa Claus!
Why didn't
I get it?
That. So do people still celebrate St. Nicholas Day?
In parts of Europe, they still do. In other parts of the world, the stockings and gift-giving of St. Nicholas Day were blended together with another day later in December when churches celebrated the birth of Jesus, a holy day or holiday called the Christ Mass.
The Christ Mass?
Christmas!
Christmas! Oh!
Hi everyone, Chris Wall here. Congratulations, you found one of the Easter eggs. This is a clip of Pastor George, voiced by Phil Vischer, and we put him in the booth and said, hey Phil, we just need some ad-lib of Pastor George preaching so that we can run that behind the scene. And so in the final, it's all kind of cut up and you don't get to hear much of it, and we thought it was just too funny to let it go like that. So here is the full clip of Pastor George preaching in his church in that final scene, and we hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Mrs. Hubert, for that lovely rendition of While by My Sheep. We have one more song. You may have noticed that we're not using candles this year due to the unfortunate incident last year. Mr. Johnson, how are the scars? Oh, good. Well, anyway, thank you, Mrs. Johnson, for the lovely bouquets. Grown in your own backyard garden, is that right? Well, you've really outdone yourself this year. Now, let me see. We're going to get together for the winter picnic next week. Bring your parkas, and we'll be playing snow volleyball. If you'll all please get your hymnals, on this sacred night we're going to sing a few songs that we always sing because it's Christmas and that's what we do. Ever since I was a little boy in Toledo, Ohio, at the Baptist church down on 4th Street, we'd sing these few songs. Of course, we sang them in Latin because English hadn't been invented yet. So we'll pull out the hymnals. We'll sing the newer versions because that makes more sense to today's modern kids. And Mary held all these things in her heart. What do you hold in your hearts today? This Christmas Eve, is it something you hope to get in the morning? Perhaps a video game console with a guitar feature? In Chapter 4, as I continue reading, we see that all these things were sacred unto those that beheld them, and betwixt the sheeps were an appearance of angels that heralded the tidings of gladness. And then where'd everybody go? Oh, nothing but carrots.
As a kid and as a young animator, I was always a huge fan of the Rankin Bass Christmas specials, and to me the top three were always Rudolph, Frosty, and the Little Drummer Boy. It was a fun challenge to figure out how to make something that had all the heart and the spirit that the original had.
The original TV special of Little Drummer Boy aired in 1968.
But I have no gift to bring.
Go, look about the newborn king.
I used to sing in a professional caroling group. The Little Drummer Boy song was in that repertoire. It just had a drive, a pulse, a rhythm to it that I always enjoyed singing.
Over 200 different versions of the song had been recorded.
There's Mannheim Steamroller,
Jars of Clay,
Stevie Wonder,
the Trapp family singers of Sound of Music fame.
Bing Crosby and David Bowie did an interesting duet of it.
We're really, really excited now to have B.B. and C.C. Winans, Grammy Award-winning gospel artists, recording the song for this project.
Shall I pray for you on my drum? Shall I play? I'll play my drum for him.
When we sat down, we said, okay, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to change? What do we want to keep the same? We really kind of filled up the show with our veggie characters and their unique way of looking at the world.
Luke Skywalker! Magi, not Jedi.
One of my favorite additions that we added was Ben Haramed's troupe, May and We, and then particularly Bernie, the bad comedian.
I tell ya, how do you get a tax collector to smile for the camera? Just say fees!
I don't get it. And now it's time for the VeggieTales Christmas party.
The first Polish Christmas dish I bring to the party.
Hey, Polish Foods of Christmas. Originally, we did the song back in 94 or 95, I believe, for A Very Veggie Christmas. My background is Polish. Naraki is a Polish name, and my grandmother lived with us for years and would cook these foods. So it was just fun incorporating that into the song, and over the years, we had talked about animating it. And the challenge with that is because it has existed for so long as just a song, everybody kind of has their own idea of that picture of the song.
2 steamed pierogies and a boiled potato topped with dillweed.
The original recording was really low quality, and so we re-recorded all the voices, and then Kurt Heineke went back to the original song, but then resequenced everything. It just is a much better sounding song now.
Little baby, rum-pum-pum-pum.
There's a lot of great lessons in the original Little Drummer Boy, and we try to pull those out as well in our version.
What Aaron needed was to learn about forgiveness, and that's what he learns when he goes to the manger and plays the song for Jesus. He experiences forgiveness and then learns to offer it as well.
You know, Junior doesn't realize he's got a gift to bring, but he does. He's got this drumming gift. And so each of us has something like that.
It's just a wonderful little story about offering what we have to God.
Me and my drum.
Hi, y'all. I'm Sal Robertson. Hey, look, I want to tell you about my first role in VeggieTales as a wise okra. Oh, boy. Now, this is getting good. Now, some people might say I'm a little green at playing a veggie. Get it? Green? But anyways, I had a great time, and I'm hoping to do it again one day. Maybe this time I can be a cucumber.
Fantastic.
Animation is cool because they can take a person's voice. Hey, the right time is the right time, man. And then match it to whatever they want. It's feeling like Christmas more every minute. Get dressed, you merry gentlemen, your undies on display. La 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 dee, la la something Christmas Day. It's a pretty neat thing. I'd love to set all these folks straight, but hey, I'm just a narrator, Jack. I love the kids, okay? I've got a bulletin board at home that they've sent me all kind of pictures and stuff, and I've got them tacked. It's a madhouse because now I'm sticking them on top of each other. I've got so many. I can't wait to see what happens when my grandsons, okay, Connor and Logan, recognize my voice when they see the show. Hey, buckle up, you young bumpkins. You're in for a tall tale. That's why I like this. VeggieTale is about kids. Not only that, it's always a learning experience or a good message with the story.
I wish there was something more we could do to help.
That was a tall order. Lawrence figured it'd take a miracle to grant something like that. But hey, deep down, he knew Christina was just trying to give God's love to Miss Crespi. And that's a mighty powerful thing. In 65 years of life, okay, that during my rough times, if I just cleared my head and looked around, I did thank God for the blessings that I did have. I was under the assumption, okay, that he's up there kind of just waiting for you to mess up. You know, and that's untrue. He's not waiting for you to mess up. Good grief. Hey, he gave his son for us. You know, he loved us that much. All right, VeggieTales, VeggieTales, VeggieTales.